I started Jack Survives comic strip uh, in 1979, and it got published in Raw in 1980, and then finally in 1984, Raw published a book completely on Jack Survives. It's a comic book character that is based on my father, the image of him. Everything else is about me. Just the image is my father as I remember him visually in his or late 40s close. He died in 1952. 53, I'm sorry, he was 52. And he goes through these daily traumatic events that are not really important, but annoy us. He survives them, and he survives through me his death. At least his name does, and I survive through him. So that's a percolator boiling over. Now these are done in brush and ink and white acrylic to take out the mistakes or to add things. Uh, 18 by 24 on Arches paper. Um, this one is the plight of the artist who sees something that somebody else doesn't see. In this case, Jack says to his wife, "Do you see the clouds?" And she does something practical, gets supper. And the clouds turn into a real horse. This is one of the earliest Jack Survives. I'll let you read it. It doesn't take long to read the Jack Survives because I'm a visual person more than a literary person, and words are meant to augment or add information, not to be anything unto themselves beyond information. This, as I said, was one of the first 5 or 6 Jacks I'd done, probably 1979 or 80. Not much to read here. This is the first printed Jack that Raw printed in their first issue, which is an anthology of alternative comics, which is was a different breed than underground comics, started by Art Spiegelman and his wife Françoise Marie in the 1980. And it was printed. This is pre-digital times, and it was printed in high contrast. So a lot of the things you're seeing here wouldn't have been seen in that original version. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, another version came out that has all of that stuff showing. In fact, these come from the scans that were made for that. Jack lives in that space between a small town and a big town, New York City, in my hometown, Binghamton. So he might be in a street of a city, or he might be in a small house. Uh, they're both consistent with my life, not with my father's life, but with my life, as all of these things are about my life. Cadillacs represented different forms of power back in the 50s, in my mind. The power of the government, power of money, power of the church, all seem to be somehow connected to expensive cars and stuff. So Jack organizes his garbage, and then the laughing Cadillac driver knocks it down. It's really a class distinction, working class versus upper class or power class. This is, I'll let you read it first. This is the one of all of the strips I did. This is the one that is true to my father, as my mother told me that he was embarrassed about carrying a package on the street, which is strange to me. And then when he went to work, he'd have my mom make him a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. He could put it in his suit coat pocket so he wouldn't be seen carrying it. It was a very strange thing. He wasn't weird at all. That's what made it so strange. So to have all that unmasculine thing happen, in my case, this is not a true event. It's an invented event, but based on a fact. Jack struggles to get a cup of coffee, and he learns to adapt. And he says coffee in different hyphenated versions, and then finally he says what the Indian says, which I think phonetically sounds like screw, but he gets his coffee. Adapting. Uh, my father would never have done this, or would I have done this? Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I always loved the alliteration of that. I have no idea what it's like, but I actually got a postcard from, after this came out, from someone in Saskatoon, with a photograph of the porno shop, a porno shop, not the. I don't know how many there were there. If that was the porno shop, a postcard. There was a supermarket I used to go to that had invariably had in the cookie aisle boxes that were opened up by ravenous kids or whatever, and it seemed like it was fair to take a cookie if it was exposed, but you didn't think other people did. It's an aisle of crime. This is the misunderstanding between the church and Jack. Uh, they both try to accommodate one or the other, and he talks, the priest talks in the run-in version of English that sounds like Latin, and that's the church I came from in the old days. I'm not a Catholic anymore, but I was as a kid in the 50s. And so here's a power car, the Cadillac, and so when he couldn't figure out what the priest was asking, he just gave him the usual directions, as you probably surmised by now. Now, as you see, Jack goes into the bar just to get out of the rain, and I guess to have a beer. Um, and as he's amongst the beer drinkers, he's asked that question about hunting, and by saying sorta, he, he felt good, but they were dumbfounded.